Coaster Kings Radio.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the Coaster Kings Radio. It is me, Sean, and...
Hi, it's Alex.
And we are here to talk about Kawaii Coaster Kings Part 2, which is the follow-up episode on our first Japan Kawaii inspired. So sorry guys, it's been a long day.
Yeah.
Episode. So this time we'll be talking about some other Japanese parks, including Suzuka Circuit, Himeji and Hirakata, Toshimaen and Sea Paradise, as well as our favorites, Nagashima, Spaland, and the Disneyland and Disney Sea parks. So without further ado, we will be starting with...
Okay, the Suzuka Circuit.
Yeah, you tell me more.
Okay. So in our first episode about the Japan parks, we had Sven kind of curating this as someone who has never been to Japan before. We don't have him for this follow up to this, where we wanted to talk about all the parks in one podcast, but the podcast was getting too long, so we were like, all right, we'll wrap it up for now, but we still had a lot of major parks to talk about. But we figured we would just come in, and even though we don't have Sven for this one, he will be with us in spirit, and we'll continue to grow ourselves about the Japanese parks. So Suzuka Circuit, which is a park that is famous less so for the amusement park aspect of it. The amusement park itself is called Mototopia, and it's part of a larger complex that includes the Suzuka Circuit Raceway. And on our Suzuka Circuit visit, it was pouring rain the entire time, but all the rides were open, which was really nice because that was not the case at some of the other parks that we visited in Japan that can be a lot more strict and stringent with operating rides in the rain. But Suzuka Circuit was open even though it poured rain the entire time. The first thing that we rode was was it Togo? Did Togo build this ride?
I don't know who built it. It may have been Senyo, given there was no legroom whatsoever.
Yeah,
but I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, it was Adventure Drive.
Yeah.
And we were the first ones in line for Adventure Drive. And Adventure Drive is neat because it uses several different forms of propulsion, including lift hills, tire-driven launches, gravity, of course. It's a Hoi Sanyo.
Hoi Sanyo.
It was a really cute coaster, kind of like little Wild Mouse-ish type ride, but with lots of different kinds of things. Yeah,
it was like a mine. It's like a mine train meets a Wild Mouse meets a dark ride that's outside. It was just there's little launches, little lift hills, tire-driven sections, and the entire idea was that you were going through an adventure drive through the jungle or something.
Pretty much everything at Suzuka Circuit, like so many of they have a ton of tracked rides, like lots of car rides, coasters, monorails, like everything in Suzuka Circuit has like a locomotion theme.
Yeah.
And this coaster was no different. However, what was interesting about our experience is
we broke our first coaster.
We got there, and it was, like I said, pouring rain. And we noticed the ride had tire drives at parts of the ride. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe they're running this ride in the rain, despite the fact that there are parts of the ride that are tire-driven. But then we were like, well, they probably know their ride better than we do. It's probably not an issue. And then we rode, and then it was an issue.
The first issue was that there's no legroom on this coaster.
That was also, yes, that's an issue as well.
So we were in pain the entire ride, which is fine, because this is Japan, and this is not our first coaster in Japan, so like pain was part of the ride experience.
It's part of the
experience, yeah. We're like halfway through the ride, and we're almost at the end, and I'm like ready to never ride this thing again. And we are going up this lift hill, a tire-driven lift hill.
Yeah.
And we could just hear the tires struggling.
We came through.
And of course, the train never made it.
It was the second launch. We did the second launch and then went around a corner. And then the tire drives basically were supposed to push us up over this little hill that went over the station and then over into the brake run. We never made it over the hill. We sat with the tire drive squealing, and the four of us, it was me and Sean and the Perry twins, who we mentioned a couple times in the last Japan episode because we hung out with them a lot. It was the four of us trying to shimmy ourselves forward and maybe assist the tire drives in some way, but our attempts were futile.
So we sat there in the pouring, and it's not just pouring rain. It's like
This was
monsoon level rain. It's just the car's filling up with water. We're all drenched, like we're just cold, freezing. We can look out of our eyes.
And all the Acers are laughing at us because they're all in line for this coaster. But
they all want to ride, but
we're in plain view. It's very clear that we are the ones that broke the ride, broke it in a sense. But
then a rescue attempt was made by the lovely crew of Suzuka Circuit.
The staff had to climb up onto the catwalks, and
we all got to wear harnesses and safety helmets, and then we got evacuated off.
Yep, and we walked.
We walked down the catwalk, and then we walked under the helix to the ride, and back to the station.
Yep. And we thought, okay, well, this coaster's done for the day. But actually, through the heroic efforts of Suzuka, they got the ride back open. It was a tedious process for a lot of people because once they got it open again, they were running it, each car with just one person. Basically, by sending it through with lighter loads, they knew that the ride had a better chance of actually completing a circuit.
In the rain. But it was nice that they didn't get shut down entirely.
Yeah, they took such good care of us. We were super grateful of their efforts, and they were embarrassed that they had to evacuate us, and they were like, "Are you okay?" We're like, "We are so doing great right now. Like, this is amazing. Like, we're having a good time." They're, like, tearing their hair out, but we enjoyed that aspect of it, and I think everyone got their credit. It just took a long time once they realized that loading all four seats of the ride was not really going to work. So after we got evacuated, we counted the credit even though we got evacuated, and we did not re-ride because we didn't feel like waiting in line to re-ride, and we just honestly, Sean certainly didn't enjoy his ride at all because of the leg room. So we left it on the table, and we're like, we're still counting it. We only missed like 5% of the ride. We got the meat of the ride under our belts, and we just took that as a win and carried on. The other traditional coaster, like I say traditional, this park, according to Roller Coaster Database, this park has 2 coasters, but we actually counted more than that. They have a few oddball
we
rides.
Counted 4.
5? Well,
2 sides of the...
They have a couple of unusual attractions that are kind of coasters, depending on who you ask. We don't generally... I mean, I don't count powered coasters, usually. Sean does. And then there's coasters at Suzuka Circuit, or I guess attractions at Suzuka Circuit that are somewhere between a coaster and a powered coaster, like a gray area. They're a little bit... like they have moments of gravity-powered... like coasting, and then moments of like propulsion via the vehicle mechanisms. So it kind of you could chalk it up to tastes. One of their newest attraction is an attraction called Dual GP, which was so much fun. It was a dueling coaster like ride.
It was like a giant lift hill, pretty much, that was limb powered.
Mm-hmm.
And then the vehicles would spin every turn. So you have to drive a vehicle, and then you
had a steering wheel, and you could either choose to keep going straight, because if you could spin yourself out and do like donuts basically on this coaster, which was so fun, and that was part of the whole experience. But if you were good and steered yourself through the turns the way you're supposed to, you could actually like win the race. But yeah, it's like a steady uphill climb, and then you get to the top, and there's 3 small drops, with magnetic brake runs at the bottom of each one. There's 2 tracks. When I'm like, okay, this is a racing coaster, basically. Like, a lot of people didn't count it as a credit. It
was definitely the most Suzuka Circuit-ish ride there was, because it was themed to drifting and racing.
Yeah, drift racing. And we're like, this is just freaking cool. Like, this isn't even just I mean, anyone that already counts powered coasters probably counted it anyway, but for the people who don't, even we were just like, well, this thing is cool, and it's more than just a powered coaster. Like, it is really unique. The way the track was set up, the propulsion, the brakes, like, it wasn't a coaster in the traditional sense, but we called it a credit just because of how undeniably coaster-like the attraction was, and, you know, we don't really like to split hairs too much. Like, we think if there's a good enough argument to count it, then we may as well count it. Like, we don't try to be like gatekeepers when it comes to like what is or isn't a coaster. If it has coaster track, if it has moments where it's, you know, coasting freely, etc. It's not even, and this dual GP ride isn't even the only ride at Suzuka Circuit that was kind of a philosophical coaster credit thing, because there's another ride which was possibly the best ride of the park.
I'm trying to think of the name again.
Den Den Mushi.
That's what it was. I was thinking Mushi. Okay.
Den Den Mushi, yeah. Which is a nursery rhyme, a Japanese nursery rhyme about garden snails. And the Den Den Mushi ride starts out as like a kind of like an elevated tramway, individual cars on like very coaster-like track.
The track was definitely coaster track.
And it was a little bit like, this looked like kind of a precursor to dual GP, where they're like, the vehicles have their own mode of propulsion for the uphill portion, but Den Den Mushi, like dual GP, had a coaster portion where you had
several drops and inclines.
Den Den Mushi even had like a little, like a bunny hop, where like you could hear the engine in the vehicle turn off, and you went down the drop and up a little hill, and then down again, and then you hear the motor kick back in. And we're like, oh, snap, this is a credit, basically. Like, you could argue really hard that it's not, but, like, I mean, we're just not, we just don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, we don't lie awake at night trying to, like, decide what is or isn't a credit. We're just kind of like, well, if it was coaster enough, and it was fun, and it was different. Really, the difference here, it's like, it's not like there's a bunch of these snail rides or like a bunch of rides like dual GP. Like, these are one of a kind attractions. So if something is really, really unique like these, like, it's easier for us to justify counting it.
And then there's one more actual kind of,
and then they have like a normal coaster,
which is another
coaster.
Senyo coaster. Yeah, it was a rocky coaster.
This one is cool because the last car,
it's a little bit of a jet coaster. There's no version.
The last car is turned backward, so we rode backward, and that was fun. Yeah. If it weren't for the riding backward, it wouldn't have been. It was actually memorable. Pretty intense, but yeah, it was pretty fun. It was cool. It's their only other. It's really the only ride there. It's like it predates the explicit fascination with propulsion themed rides. So it's just a coaster basically with no like theme tie-in. But like some of the newer stuff, like they have this suspended monorail that's themed to like steampunk
submarines.
Yeah, it was really neat. And this was another one where people were asking themselves if it was a credit. I don't think we ended up counting it.
Quite some
This one was more similar to like the Disneyland monorail, but like a suspended version. It wasn't quite coaster enough for us. We were like, we already counted a bunch of stuff here that people are going to laugh at us for counting, so we better just like leave us where we are. And not tempt fate with counting everything at this park as a credit. But yeah, the park was really cute. It had a lot of just interesting, different rides, lots of different themes, and then the coasters, Dual GP and Den Den Mushi, the quasi coasters that we decided to count after the fact, ended up being like the highlights of the park for us because they were so weird and so charming. Especially Den Den Mushi. I mean, Dual GP was cool, but Den Den Mushi was the most Japanese thing imaginable because not only are you riding in a garden snail, but there is a small snail mascot inside of your vehicle that like it's an audio animatronic, and he looks around and tells you like a story in Japanese. So like you're going through this monorail quasi lift hill thing leading up to the coaster bit, but all the while you have an animatronic snail telling you a story of some kind, which we couldn't understand, but it was just so cute. It was just the cutest, most Japanese thing ever. So it left an impression. It was a good park.
So there's a restaurant in the middle of the park that we were hiding from the rain. We saw the rides operate from there, but they had amazing pancakes. So
we went to a pancake house.
Don't forget to eat pancakes when you're at that park.
You go eat pancakes at Suzuka Circuit. Absolutely.
And from that small park, which has a much larger presence given that it's next to one of the world's best-known racetracks.
Prominent racetracks, yeah.
We're going to go to some parks that no one really knows about unless you're a coast enthusiast. And that's Himeji Central Park, which is located somewhat close to Osaka.
Yeah, these are like the small parks that we are... on the tour for Osaka, we had obviously a Universal Studios Japan day, and then we had kind of a small parks day where we split Himeji Central Park or Himeji Central Safari Park, I think was like the full name.
Yeah,
of the
I never
park.
saw a single animal there, but there was
supposedly it's a safari park. I guess you can just call yourself whatever you want. And then Hirakata Park, which is actually in the metro of Osaka, and these parks were great little credit runs, small, odd. Unmistakably Japanese, definitely full of surprises. Himeji Central Park's claim to fame is that they have a Batman the Ride clone, which they built in 1994.
It's called the Diablo with a V, as in Victor.
We actually talked about Diablo a little bit in our Six Flags Great Adventure versus Cedar Point episode, because we were talking about how... some of our friends think that the Batman clone at Great Adventure is the best one, and I said, no, I think this one in Japan is the best one because it's so
Even if
weird.
the one in Japan didn't exist, just for the record, the one in Great Adventure would not be the best one, but that's besides the point.
Oh, you. Okay. I mean,
I
don't disagree. No, I think it's statewide the best Batman clone. I'm asking you.
Well, the one at Georgia's better than that. I think the one at Magic Mountain's better than that.
I'm very partial to the one at Magic Mountain. And the Great White at SeaWorld.
Great White's great. Yeah, I don't know whoever thought that Great Adventures Batman was the best
because they
one.
think everything at Great Adventure is the best. And that's okay. We still love them.
And not really... So, yeah, back to Himeji Central Park. It has a Batman clone.
A Batman clone. Even though this park is in a farm in the middle of nowhere, we're like, we don't know how they afforded a Batman clone. And, the park is doing well. We talked a little bit about how a lot of the smaller parks in Japan have struggled amid their recession and probably struggled under the insurmountable weight of the competing major parks like the Tokyo Disney Resort and Universal Studios Japan. Universal Studios Japan has not been around for that long. I don't think people necessarily realize Tokyo Disney Resort's been around since '83, but Universal Studios Japan didn't open until 2001. So the parks of the Osaka region are less than 20 years into dealing with the long-term effects of having a global juggernaut park, particularly this park that has such an incredibly high attendance. So back in the 90s, I think Himeji Park was very ambitious with their Batman clone. And they also have an Intamin First Gen Freefall, which was probably the favorite ride of the day. We also had one at Nagashima Spotland, which we'll talk about later. We are so obsessed with First Gen Freefalls because they are still the most thrilling, I think, of the drop ride experiences.
The real fun at this park, and however much I may or may have not liked the comfort of these rides, is that this was probably the most Japanese park that we went to, in my opinion.
Totally.
Every single coaster there, besides Batman clone, was just completely Japanese in every way possible. There was a giant jet coaster over the entrance.
Camelback jet coaster.
That was pretty great.
Classic.
You have Hurricane, which is of course, it's actually a Togo sit-down looping coaster.
And this ride was secondhand, too.
Yeah, it was opened in 07.
In 07.
But it came from Kintetsu Ayamaiki as Tornado, and now it's Hurricane. So pretty much same.
It changed.
But it's a double, single loop, and then
double cork.
Double cork. The rides transitions are rough, and the comfort of the trains are quite miserable too. But it was
funny
the most Japanese looking looper.
It's funny to me how this park built a Batman clone in 1994, but for 2007 they added a vintage Togo looping coaster.
A low budget trying to compete.
Kind of representing probably the direction that this park has been in.
Then there was a Pinfari
they have a Wacky Worm, and then they also have Labyrinth, which was this really
I don't even know how to explain that, but it's a
Meishio Wild Mouse type coaster. It was really
Mine
cute.
Train. It was actually really cute.
That was fun. So this park has 5 really good coasters. Well, I mean, it has 5 credits. Coasters. It has 5 credits.
2 of which are good.
A couple of them are very good, and they have the Intamin First Gen Freefall, which actually, if for those of you who are already frustrated with us because of the credits from Suzuka Circuit that we counted, we also decided on the Japanese trip that we count Intamin Freefalls as credits because they are comprised of quintessential roller coaster components, and really the only knock against them is that they don't coast uphill at any point. But there's also a lot of coasters out there that don't coast uphill that are still widely accepted as credits, particularly like Pteranodon Flyer at Universal Studios, and like there's definitely like kiddie coasters and stuff out there, and rides where they're just very simple. There's not a whole lot to it if you're looking at an Intamin Freefall in the context of a coaster, but I mean, it's got a lift hill, it has a drop, it's got anti-rollbacks, it's got friction brakes, it's got a station, it's got all of the coaster components. So we really, it's kind of just as far as we're concerned, like we don't think there's a good enough reason not to count these as credits unless you're just really the best reason that I can think of is that if people don't want to count them because they don't want to seem like they're trying to pad their credit list, I guess that's valid. Like, not everyone wants to count everything. No one should feel like they have to count these just because we do. But we just thought, looking at it from a mechanical perspective, we're like, we don't know why more people don't count these. I think they're more coaster-like than some of the things that people do count. I mean, everyone counts bobsled coasters, but they're not even attached to the track. Like, they have a wheel assembly that is very un-coaster-like compared to something like Freefall, which has road wheels, upstop wheels, and I think it has wheels on the side, too. Basically, by the time we got to this park, because we'd already ridden the Freefall at Nagashima Spa Land, and we're like, actually, I think I think there's a case to be made that these are coasters, because they're just too coaster-like to ignore the fact that they're very coaster-like. Really, this whole Japan trip really made us take a closer look at what constitutes a credit, because in addition to free falls and things like Den Mushi, like cycle railways, cycle coasters.
Yeah, but they have actual lift hills, and then you have to cycle, and then there's actual drops, and then you cycle again.
And there's brake runs and everything. Like, you would go through very slowly if you didn't pedal your way through. It's a cycle monorail, or railway, or raceway, as they call them. So the point is you use bicycle mechanisms in the vehicles. There's actually one at the other Hirakata Park has one. We rode a couple of them. There was one in we rode 3. There was one at Toshimaen. There was one at Yomiuri Land, one at Hirakata Park, and one at Cosmo World.
Yeah.
And all of them had similar hallmarks: lift hill, drops. At least 2 of them had uphill coast moments too, where, like, I guess it's conceivable that you could valley on these, and then you're sitting there on your little bicycle vehicle, probably not able to bike yourself up the incline, and then you probably need assistance from a staff member. Is possible. However, like, again, bearing all of this in mind, we're like, we can argue that these aren't a coaster, but we can also argue that they are not a coaster. And in the era of, like, alpine coasters and mountain coasters that are widely gaining acceptance as credits, we kind of feel like the cycle monorail or the cycle raceway of Japan is kind of like the mountain coaster of Japan. There is a human operator element involved, but because it has all of the mechanical components of a coaster, we have a hard time being convinced that it's absolutely, definitely not a credit. But it's everyone's opportunity to determine based on their own logic whether or not something is a credit. In the grand scheme of things, a lot of these iffy credits make up a very small percentage of most people's counts anyway. So, like, yeah, some of these oddball coasters we counted in Japan, it's like, okay, we counted them. They made up like less than 5% of the credits that we got on the trip, because it was certainly flush with undeniable traditional credits that were unique in ways other than the fact that they were, may or may not have been credits. Also at Hirakata Park, the normal coasters at this park, they have a little Intamin wooden coaster called Elf.
It's actually one of the better rides on the trip. It was cute and not much to it. No big drops or crazy intense helix hits or anything. Helices, I should say. But it was just a good ride. It was fun.
And for any Efteling fans out there, Elf is like really similar to Pegasus, which was the Intamin wooden coaster at Efteling prior to it being exchanged for Joris and the Drac, the dueling GCI wooden coaster. Elf is like the closest relative to Pegasus that we have. It's a very similar, just family style Intamin wooden coaster, kind of like a kiddie cyclone layout of sorts. Hirakata Park's big coaster is Red Falcon, which is just another classic Japanese jet coaster. This one had big red trains that resemble those of an Aero Looper, so we were fond of those. And
it was actually kind of cool that it's kind of a jet coaster, but a little more speed to it, a little more force. Went around the park, definitely a lot bigger than
more
most
powerful
jet coasters.
Like the Camelback jet coaster, which we rode at Himeji that morning, was very straightforward in its design, whereas Red Falcon, you could tell, was a little bit later, a little bit more varied.
Went all over the park. The interesting thing about the track on Red Falcon was that the spine at no point would ever turn. So the spines were all flat, but then the actual track would be raised differently. Yeah. So it's just a really funny looking track everywhere.
The track bed was so unique for this ride. Rather than like the whole track angling for the turns, the individual cross beams between the rails would raise or lower to accommodate
for banking.
It's hard to explain.
But yeah, look at Red Falcon at Hirakata Park, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Look at it, look up. Hirakata Park, Red Falcon, roller coaster database. Look at some pictures of this ride. The track system is so interesting. It can probably better explain what we're trying to explain through just showing you. But it was interesting. You can get up really close to this ride, especially on their log flume. They have an excellent log flume, which, like the excellent log flume at Cosmo World, it has a big drop, and the louder you scream on the drop, there's a point system. It records your scream, and it will award a point value based on how loud you and your party screamed on the drop.
And then another ride, they have this Crazy Mouse. It's just your usual Revitron, how you pronounce that?
Yeah.
Spinning mouse, however, just cars do not spin whatsoever, so the ride's quite intense.
The cars are locked.
It was fun.
Yep. I guess that's the crazy part about it, is that it doesn't do what it's designed to do, but I'm not a big fan of spinning mice personally, so I wasn't bothered.
Then they have a ride called the Fantastic Coaster Rowdy.
Fantastic Coaster Rowdy.
This is a small mix show. It was kind of like that one ride we just talked about.
It was sort of a Labyrinth.
Yeah, kind of like Labyrinth. Just like a mix of a wild mouse, a mine train, and just small turns, small drops.
Like nothing a tiny jet
spectacular. Remember being a little bit rough, unlike Labyrinth, but it was fun. And then there's a ride called Koro Truck or Koro Truck.
Okay, so this kiddie coaster, the name of it was originally, Roller Coaster Database originally misnomered this ride.
They
thought that it was called Peekaboo Town, but Peekaboo Town is the name of the kiddie area, and there's a big sign in front, or I guess behind the kiddie coaster that says Peekaboo Town, and so the ride was incorrectly labeled as such. But I believe it was around the time that Ace went to Japan that Roller Coaster Database was either alerted or figured out that the kiddie coaster has its own name, Koro Truck, and that Peekaboo Town is just the name of the kiddie area.
This was another one of those Senyo rides where sitting down meant that I could not touch the seat. I was pretty much just imagine like a little kiddie coaster bench, and I was sitting with one butt cheek on the bench, the other butt cheek floating in the air, and my legs were just, I didn't even have a restraint or anything. And
Sean and our friend Bob Zeems, who are the two tallest people on the tour, I have a great picture of them riding this coaster together, sitting together, riding side saddle, facing a 90-degree angle away from where you would normally face on a roller coaster, because that was the only way for them to fit in this ride. And the ride operators were kind enough to allow for the ride to dispatch, even though the only part of you that was under the lap bar was like your left hip, I guess.
Yeah.
We had a couple. There was a couple rides like that where it's like you put your seatbelt on if
Like
there
the
is
banana
one.
coaster.
Oh yeah, Family Banana Coaster at Cosmo World, where it's like we weren't really. They put we're like scrunched up in a ball with our legs tucked in, facing sideways, and the lap bar comes down just kind of over your left hip, and they're just like, all right, the lap bar's down, you're in the seat, you're obviously not going anywhere. There's not really a good way to get thrown from these rides if getting out requires so much effort anyway.
Exactly. Another great ride at this park that I don't want to forget about is the second generation Intamin Freefall.
Yeah.
I really like that. That was good. And you get a really great... This park is built on a hill. So a lot of hills, a lot of walking, a lot of climbing. However, there's a Ferris wheel on top of the hill. But you can also take a look at... It's kind of in the middle of the metro, so you see a bunch of these Shinkansen trains run by and stuff. And on the way back, we went from Osaka to Tokyo in the morning on our last day. And we most definitely saw Red Falcon and the entire park right next to it. So it's kind of cool. It's in a nice location. I like it. Yeah,
it's very scenic. And almost... Like, seeing it from the train and stuff, the way the rides are all layered on the hill, kind of reminds me of Six Flags St. Louis on a smaller scale. And you have, like, the wooden coaster that's kind of floating up there in the back, and various tower rides and things kind of stacked on each other, layered very nicely. Great, really cute little park. The Intamin Second Gen Freefall was probably one of their newer looking...
Also, one of the things I loved the most. It was fun.
They really love drop rides in Japan. Like, Nagashima, for example, they have their Intamin Freefall and also a 3-sided SNS tower. But at no point does an SNS tower negate a freefall, I guess, in this culture, because they're just too fun, and they could always use the capacity, I guess.
I mean, so like Dorney Park doesn't do the same thing. Demon Drop and the SNS Tower.
Actually, did you know like one of Dorney Park's 3 towers on their SNS tower is empty?
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. So I guess they really only had 3, but 3 total drop rides, but Spaland has 4.
But before we get to Spaland, we're actually going to talk a little bit about Disney and Disney Sea. So,
yes, it's Disney time.
You know,
are you guys ready?
Very, very important aspect of the theme park industry in Japan is Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea. We'll start with Tokyo Disneyland because Sea is better.
So, Tokyo Disney Resort, which is pretty much in a harbor in the downtown Tokyo area. This resort is so ingrained in the cultural fabric of Tokyo, of Japan. Like, some people would think that going to a Disney park on their Japan trip would not be a valuable use of their time, and maybe not a good example of enjoying the culture. But we would argue the opposite, that there is really few things that the Japanese people of Tokyo are more jazzed about than Tokyo Disney. It is just, everyone knows about it, talks about it. There's just Disney. There's traces of Disney all throughout the city. You can tell just walking around. You could go to Harajuku or any of these, like the popular neighborhoods in Japan, and just Disney is everywhere. There's Disney stores and people wearing, accessories and outfits and things that they bought on their Tokyo Disney visits. Like this resort, is so loved and so part of the culture.
The great thing about Disneyland itself is that Tokyo Disneyland, is that it feels so classic. Mm-hmm. The logo is super retro.
Yeah.
They have the classic Space Mountain
land, the Castle Park, as we call it.
The castle, yeah. So they have a big Thunder Mountain. It's one of the better maintained ones with a different ending where it has a drop into a little valley and then back into the brake run. It's just fun. I would say the Space Mountain is really cool because it's awesome. Classic. So there is still the the little conveyor belts that carry you up to the dome, and then the actual ride has no sound effects.
There's no onboard audio or offboard audio.
So it's just a bunch of stars and then light up rockets that are zooming by. You can even see them from the queue still. So it's honestly really cool.
Yeah, for anyone that can remember, like they think back to like what it was like to do Space Mountain in the '80s at Disneyland. That's when this one was built. It was basically like the Tokyo Disney Resort was opened in 1983. It was built at around the time that Disneyland was starting to churn out coasters, the late 70s. And then in the early 80s, Disneyland did their Fantasyland remodel, major shift in the design aspect of probably the most pivotal area of Disneyland. And so the development of Disneyland as a park with coasters and also the growth and change of Fantasyland, those are two things that definitely manifested in the design for Tokyo Disneyland. Space Mountain opened first with the park, and it is pretty much exactly the way it was when it opened, which is exactly how Anaheim's was at the time.
They have a Gadget's Go coaster, which is pretty much the same too. I find the one in Anaheim a little more attractive. And then they have
this is the only other park that has Toontown.
But their Toontown is very much merged with Fantasyland, as where the one in Anaheim is much more separated.
Isolated, yeah.
And then they have Splash Mountain, which has similar boats to those in
Walt Disney
Orlando.
World.
However, the restraints are individual U-bars, and they have no legroom whatsoever. It's pretty miserable. But I like the way it was set up. The queue is mostly inside. The station's inside instead of outside. So it's all a little bit more like weatherproof. And you don't get wet in that ride at all.
Tokyo Disneyland is
it was cool how it's
incredibly efficiently designed. Like it is almost so... It's almost so well organized that it feels almost a little bit too calculated. But I guess you could say it's very fitting for Tokyo for it to be so incredibly calculated. But everything just is slotted in so nicely. Like the back perimeter of the park, Splash Mountain, Haunted Mansion, Small World, the Alice in Wonderland restaurant, Pooh's Honey Hunt, and Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin are all just lined up so evenly. A lot of the Disney parks, like they kind of have like the wagon wheel shape, but this is Tokyo Disneyland is built like the Pentagon. You are never more than like a 10-minute walk from anything in this park. I feel there's like almost no dead ends. There's like an inner circle and an outer circle, and Main Street USA doesn't exist. Rather than having, you go down Main Street USA and you hit the hub and then you access everything from the hub, Tokyo Disneyland has World Bazaar, which is basically Main Street USA, but instead of being a street, it's an intersection. So you can be halfway down World Bazaar, which is like being halfway down Main Street USA, and you can take a hard right and be in Tomorrowland, or a hard left and be in Adventureland. So it's a little different because I think it's ingrained psychologically for the American Disney parks and also, Paris and Hong Kong, pretty much most of these places. Most of these Disney parks, like
other than that, it feels so similar though, because like they have Pirates that is very similar to Anaheim setup, except for it's a little bit shorter. And then there's Space Mountain again, Tomorrowland, the Haunted Mansion, the Big Thunder Mountain and Splash Mountain are switched around compared to Anaheim's, where Big Thunder is kind of like Walt Disney World, like in the furthest point away, but their Splash Mountain is kind of a little closer to the middle of the park. Then they have
they got Jungle Cruise.
They
don't have they have a train ride, but it's not the Disneyland Express. Rather than have a train ride that like encircles the park, they just have a train ride that's on the left side of the park, and it wraps around Adventureland and Frontierland, or Westernland is actually what they call it. And it's just as one station, and it's just a ride, but it has the classic the train through Rainbow Ridge and Nature's Wonderland and the Primeval World and stuff, like all of that there is present. It's basically this park does away with some of the more classic conventions of the original Disneyland and Magic Kingdom by like not having a main street for the sake of opening up the park and making it a true wagon wheel.
However, the park still lacks a feel original. A lot of what it does, the other Disney parks have already done. Well, I mean, it really feels like yet another one of the Magic Kingdom parks. There's very little uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
Especially the real main thing they have unique to themselves is their Pooh's Honey Hunt, which is the Trackless Dark Ride with some cool technology, and it's definitely one of their outstanding attractions. However, everything else they have to offer, all their e-tickets, they're all in some way, shape, or form represented in either Magic Kingdom or in the original Disneyland. So I wouldn't say that the park is super on your priority list if you only have to a few parks to choose in Japan.
Oh yeah, if you have one day.
Disneyland, Tokyo Disneyland's awesome, but it's really, really crowded. A lot of people, the old Fast Pass system, and a lot of attractions you've already experienced somewhere else. So even though it's really, really great and it's well maintained, it feels more classic than even Magic Kingdom does now, because Magic Kingdom just feels like it's made for the masses. Yeah. Tokyo Disneyland feels like it's been the same since the 80s, and it's really, really great. It's a great upkeep. However, I don't think it is all that. Like when we ranked all of our parks, Magic Kingdom didn't rank very high, but neither did Tokyo Disneyland. Tokyo Disney Sea, however, right next door, is one of the best theme park attractions, one of the best theme parks ever built. Like by far, if you think Disneyland is great in Tokyo, Disney Sea will just, I don't even know what to say. It's just such a fantastic place.
Where Tokyo Disneyland has like a handful of unique rides. I mean, they've got Pooh. They have the Monsters Inc. ride, which is really cute. It's sort of like a shooting dark ride, but you use flashlights to activate the audio animatronics throughout the ride. Very clever, very family friendly. Again, classically Japanese. And right now they're building the Beauty and the Beast trackless dark ride, which will be now, I guess, the park's third park unique attraction, which is great because Tokyo Disneyland could really use more that's special to that park. Meanwhile, Tokyo Disney Sea is brimming with attractions that are either totally unique to the park or are
modified
to be very park specific.
So, for those who have no clue about how Disney Sea works, except for that it's themed to the seas, which it is, obviously, you enter the park in kind of in a Mediterranean village, which is called, what is it called again? Port... Where were you in the beginning? The Mediterranean area.
I'm trying to remember. I feel... Yeah, it was like... Yeah, it's just like a... Venetian.
It has an obvious name to it. And
the hotel, when you enter Tokyo Disney Sea, you're actually passing underneath a major hotel, which is called the Hotel Hirakata. The park kind of feels a little bit like a more sophisticated, refined version of Universal's Islands of Adventure, where everything in this park is like a port of call sort of feel. It has...
It's just called Mediterranean Harbor. Okay, it's
we
simple.
looked it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah, so Mediterranean Harbor is this giant harbor with a nice lagoon. The lagoon is used for live shows with boats and actors and dancers, and there's the restaurants, and the Fantasmic is shown there. So, like, the moment you get in, like, the park is just giant. It's this giant lake that's actually on the ocean. And it has this really, really nice presence. Like, the moment you walk underneath Hirakata and you walk in, you're like, just...
You're transported.
You're in awe. Like, this is... I can't believe this is a park.
You have
the
volcano,
amazing.
this, like, life-sized volcano in the background behind Mediterranean Harbor, which is the focal point of this park, is their frequently erupting mysterious island volcano, which houses the flagship ride of the whole resort, honestly.
Just Journey to the Center
of the Earth. Themed and based on the Jules Verne novel of the same name. It is a breathtaking dark ride-oriented achievement. At 20 years old, it is still one of the most impressive dark ride experiences on Earth.
So the queue is pretty awesome, especially right before loading. And then the ride itself, however, is not very long, which is my biggest disappointment.
It's about 4 minutes long, if that.
It's definitely shorter than both Cars and Test Track.
This ride uses the Test Track ride. It's like the Disney slot car system. It's Cars, and so it's one of only 3 of its kind.
Yeah. However, towards the end of the ride, I'm just going to give you a spoiler. I'm sure you've heard of it before.
Yeah.
You speed up rapidly into an upward helix that spits out a volcano, and then you have this major drop down. Honestly, there's crazy air on that thing, which is something you would never expect on a dark ride from Disney. So that's really, really good.
It's sort of the park's coaster component. They have a true roller coaster, Raging Spirits, which is a good ride. We'll talk more about that later, but really, Raging Spirits didn't open with Disney Sea. It was opened on like the 5-year anniversary of Disney Sea. The quintessential thrill experience and really just the quintessential experience, period, for this resort is Journey to the Center of the Earth, because it has everything. The dark ride components, various scenes that represent your descent into the Earth's core, are like the scenes are just gorgeous and captivating and incredibly well done, and then you get the major thrill ride, roller coaster like payoff at the end. So yeah, that ride's it's a knockout. Again, yeah, it's not very long, but it's longer than the average coaster, that's for sure. And what's there, everything just slaps. Like the ride, what you do have is perfect across the board.
And a ride below the ride is actually not a ride. It's called
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So Disney's classic submarine style ride gets a facelift. And it gets the Jules Verne steampunk treatment that that you might find familiar. Our Disneyland Paris fans will find similarities here. With the Discoveryland area at Disneyland, and then so those are the rides for the Jules Verne area of the park, our Mysterious Island, and then this is sort of the hub of the park per se. It's not a perfect circle. Disney Sea is a bit more organic.
Yeah, it's a little more of a mess, but that's a good mess, I guess.
Considering how orderly Tokyo Disneyland is and how almost overly organized and well compartmentalized the park is, Disney Sea feels a lot more natural. They have a little mermaid area that...
Yeah, it's called Mermaid Lagoon. It's half indoor, half outdoor. Has a little Togo family coaster. Mm-hmm. That's the park's best actual roller coaster. It's called Flounder's Fish Coaster.
Flying Fish Coaster.
There you go. It's actually really cute.
The indoor part of the park
much, but it's cute.
It's kind of like, for those of you who loved Disney's California Adventure and Bugs Land... These were actually California Adventure and Disney Sea were being built at the same time, and
sorry, California Adventure.
Obviously, Disney Sea was a lot better, and that's mostly because Disney doesn't own the Tokyo Disney Resort. The Oriental Land Company owns the Disney Resort, and that is where the money comes from. The fact that Disney doesn't have to use any of their own money to build this place means that they can build whatever they want, and they just set the Imagineers free. To just do whatever they like. So everything that was in the concept for Disney Sea was built, and that includes this area of the park that has jumping jellyfish, just like California Adventure, and then it's got several rides that you could also find at Flick's Fun Fair at Bugs Land.
Yeah, it has a couple outdoor rides, a couple indoor rides. It has a theater inside, which is
the Little Mermaid show.
Theater.
Super cool, like an aerial show. They have the Arabian Coast.
And then there's the Arabian Coast, which is actually one of my favorite areas, simply because in Europe that subject is touched quite a bit, like Efteling has Fata Morgana, and but in America, the whole theme of like an Arabian land, Arabian themed area, it's just harder to find. And they do such a great job at Tokyo Disney with that. There is a show, there is a carousel, there is an Aladdin Jasmine ride.
It's kind of two halves. Like one half
games,
is Aladdin.
Restaurants.
Like there's a southern half of the Arabian coast that is all Aladdin. They have a genie themed carousel, and then Aladdin the Magic Lamp, which is like a 3D show. And then the north side of it has the best ride
in the park,
like ever. It's the Storybook Voyages of Sinbad
in Chandu. It's a little tiger friend.
Storybook Voyages of Sinbad is Arabian themed, obviously. Small World, basically, but with much more detailed audio animatronics.
Custom written, amazing music.
Beautiful.
Hundreds and hundreds of animatronics. It's just I don't even know what to say. It's just so incredibly good.
Has so much incredible, like such an incredible amount of substance. Everything is practical effects. Just countless really detailed audio animatronics of Sinbad and the various people that he meets on his journey. He basically goes, he leaves the Middle East to travel to India. This is, Disney taking some liberties about what Sinbad was about. Sinbad was really, he was a pirate and he was barbaric and did lots of cool and bad things. But Disney's Sinbad is a is a man of global commerce and travels to India and meets lots of
Sultan.
friends on the way. Yeah, he goes to meet the Sultan, and then returns back to the Middle East with treasures that he discovered on his voyage.
And the main point of this ride is that there are different stories for Sinbad. There's 7 different stories, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, these stories are separate events, Disney threw them all together and made them one big event.
One event.
So, one event leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Every single person gives some sort of valuable item to help him succeed on his journey, and he comes back home, and the final scene is one of the best scenes. The
final scene, the party that they have, the music crescendo, the song for this ride, Compass of Your Heart, is absolutely one of my favorite Disney songs of all time. And just, it is so well written from, it's a simple 4-chord kind of thing, but man, the lyrics are great. It has Japanese and English lyrics, and the English lyrics are beautiful, even though the Japanese version is what you hear in the ride. The whole thing, you'll be humming that song for the rest of your trip.
Yeah.
The ride is just a total knockout. It's so easy to have your attention be drawn to some of the bigger, more thrilling rides in this park, but the Sinbad ride is just a total knockout. It's easily the most underrated attraction in the entire Disney lexicon, and really there's some good POVs of this ride on YouTube, ones that have various multi-point shots of the different scenes and stuff. Do yourself a favor and find a good low light, high frame rate POV of Sinbad and turn up the volume all the way and introduce yourself to one of the greatest Disney rides ever.
And another reason that Arabian Coast is so amazing is that they have a great restaurant where they serve all sorts of curry. Which curry is amazing, of course, awesome, sick stuff. And then the Tokyo Disney's thing is popcorn. Yeah. And there's 12 different flavors of popcorn. They're literally listed on the map so you can figure out where to get which flavor. We tried 5 or 6 of them. Curry is the best one.
Curry popcorn.
We got that at least 4 or 5 times. We were to Tokyo Disney for 3 days total.
Yeah.
And we got it a bunch. It's just so good.
There's so many good flavors of popcorn. There's dessert flavors and there's savory flavors. There's flavors that are themed kind of to the areas of the park that they're in. You can get a honey flavor popcorn over by Pooh's Honey Hunt at Disneyland.
You get salt and pepper,
the curry popcorn.
And you get shrimp popcorn. There's chocolate popcorn, strawberry popcorn.
Yeah, it's
teriyaki popcorn is Space Mountain. Anything you can imagine.
Your Tokyo Disney experience kind of begins and ends with the popcorn. Honestly, if you're not eating popcorn, pretty much every minute of every moment that you're at Disney, you're just. I don't know if you're getting the most out of your experience, guys. You just have to eat the popcorn all the time. And the popcorn buckets are amazing. People collect their popcorn buckets, and it's they have a popcorn bucket for every day of the week, every outfit in their closet. It's just part of the experience.
And then the next area is the Lost Delta River, which is home to
Raging Spirits, which is a forgettable roller coaster. Raging Spirits is fun. Okay, so the Lost River Delta, which is a Mexican-themed area of the park, it's basically what the Indiana Jones area of Disneyland Paris was supposed to be, where it was going to have a clone of the Disneyland Anaheim Indiana Jones ride and also the looping coaster, which Paris ended up only with just the coaster. Disney Sea got both. They got an updated version of Disneyland's Indiana Jones. The biggest difference really is just the way that the ride is set up. It's located right on the midway.
A couple thematic and scene differences.
Yeah. The one at Tokyo Disney Sea takes place in Mexico, whereas the one in Anaheim is in Adventureland and takes place in India. So there's a couple of subtle differences related to the different geography, but it's, for all intents and purposes, it's just the Disney Sea is just a slightly better version of the ride. There's an extra scene towards the end of the ride that Anaheim's doesn't have. And then Raging Spirits, which is a very nice companion to the dark ride here. It's not so much an e-ticket ride in the same sense that Journey to the Center of the Earth and the Indy ride and Tower of Terror are, but it's a good complement to Indy. And the one at Disneyland Paris is not everyone's favorite. I really like it. The one at Disney Sea is a much, much more impressive looking version of the same ride with fire effects and waterfalls and lots of little details throughout. Like they really dressed it up nicely. Some people would say that it's lipstick on a pig, but like, especially Sean, because Sean doesn't. Sean is too tall for Raging Spirits, and we got him to ride just by the sheer grace of good fortune, because our first attempt of getting him to ride...
We tried like 5 times to ride, and I only rode it once.
The only time we were able to get him on was that it was raining, and it made it harder for the staff member to actually gauge whether or not he was too tall for the ride, and we kind of just got fudged through.
We're acting like the rain was in our face.
Yeah.
We're kind of bending over.
When it's raining, the trees are slumping, and everyone's kind of craning their necks, and, it was just easier... It was enough of a distraction for us to get Sean on the ride.
We tried again when it rained, and they wouldn't let us.
Yeah.
But at least I got on it once.
We got the credit, and the park, the reason that the height thing is there is just because there's not a lot of distance between the top of the shoulder harness and the seat. So, Sean, I mean, you're right. You said your ride was okay, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty comfortable. It was fine.
It was comfortable enough. It's just a pain in the butt. The height requirement thing is honestly kind of excessive, but it's not really an issue because there's so few people visiting this park that exceed the height max. But you got the credit, and that's what matters.
And then the next area is the Port Discovery, which is kind of tied in with Mystery Island. It's on the backside of the volcano. Has the same steampunk thing going on. It's actually on the ocean. It has the infamous Aquatopia ride.
So cute.
Which you rode that a bunch. It was
Aquatopia
fun.
is so fun. It's like trackless dark ride, like Winnie the Pooh, Mystic Manor. It's a little bit like Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters,
but it's in the water.
DCA, but it's in the water. It's in like 6 inches of water, and the cars just kind of have a mind of their own, or so it seems, and they scuttle about in the tide. And there's whirlpools and waterfalls and water cannons and lights and
yeah, it's cute.
It's really cute.
Fun.
In the summertime, you can get wet on it. Apparently, this is sort of the park's
only water ride.
Wet ride. I mean, Sinbad is a flume ride, but you don't get wet. Much in the same way that you don't get wet on Small World. Aquatopia is not a flume ride, but you can get wet when you ride it in the summertime. They also have the Nemo and Friends Sea Rider.
Yeah,
ride
it's a big
Star
simulator
Tours.
themed to being
like a bigger
at the
version
Discovery
of Star
Center
Tours.
or whatever of finding
the Marine Life
Dory.
Institute of Finding Dory. It was super cute.
It was cute, but it wasn't memorable.
It's the one example of really it's one of the only examples where like you have an intellectual property tie-in with the park, and it feels just a tiny bit forced. But it's also, I guess, because it's newer and it doesn't like Indiana Jones and Aladdin and stuff and The Little Mermaid. A lot of that feels a little bit more natural. But having said that, I mean, it's the park is called Disney Sea. I think if there's any Disney intellectual property that belongs in a park called Disney Sea, aside from maybe The Little Mermaid, I guess Finding Nemo is pretty much the most deserving. Port Discovery, I feel like, has the least amount going for it, except for maybe like the entrance of the park. The entrance of the park, the Mediterranean area, finally has a true ride now. They're opening their version of Soarin'
like this week,
like soon. It's probably already soft opened, but yeah, they have their version of Soarin', and it's themed to Leonardo da Vinci's flying machines. Beautiful, perfect thematic incorporation. That's probably one of the best qualities about Disney Sea is that whatever conventions and Disney stuff that they build there, they do such a good job of making it work for that park's aesthetic. Nothing there really sticks out. Their Twilight Zone Tower of Terror is not the Twilight Zone. It's just Tower of Terror, and it's in the American waterfront area of the park. And rather than it being themed to the Twilight Zone,
it's themed to Mr. Hightower's
Harrison Hightower's
Hightower, hotel, and it is themed to a big collection that he has. It's going to show it off to all his rich people in New York in his big hotel, and he has this little tiki statue,
tiki idol. It's
that
cursed.
goes crazy and curses the elevator, and they're going to be on the elevator. Now, most elevators on its Tower Terror rides are pretty cursed, however, the ones in Tokyo Disney Sea are lame at best. There's not much going on. There's a 3-point seatbelt. Unless you're lucky, you get a good view of downtown Tokyo at a distance. The ride is pretty forgettable.
It's kind of a frog hopper sort of thing.
Yeah, like a giant frog hopper with a long
looks
line.
beautiful. We call it. It's the
it's the most
pretty tower.
Yeah, it's really pretty. Like
it's so pretty.
Great for setting a scene. However, actually on the ride, it's not that good.
And then, the American Waterfront is the biggest area of Tokyo Disney Sea. They have, Art Deco New York, which is the biggest subsection of American Waterfront, and that's where Tower of Terror is. They also have a Cape Cod-themed area at the park with no rides.
Just a bunch of meet and greets and restaurants.
But food, Duffy Bear, which is another huge...
He was born in Cape Cod.
That's a huge... There's just something... I don't know what it is about Duffy Bear. It's this teddy bear character that the Japanese Disney peeps are just obsessed with. And Duffy Bear is from the Cape Cod area of Tokyo Disney Sea. So that's really kind of the hallmark of that little subsection. The third area in American Waterfront is the Toy Story Trolley Park, which has a Coney Island, incandescent light bulb laden Luna Park kind of feel to it with a Toy Story Mania clone. Really nice looking. We didn't even ride it, did we? I rode it on a previous trip.
No, we were too busy eating custard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the little
dumplings.
alien. Yes. If you can, when you're at Disney Sea, American Waterfront should have them for sale in a cart somewhere, but I've also seen them in other places.
We had to run around to find
the little Toy Story alien custard dumplings.
One with strawberry, one with vanilla, one with chocolate. Amazing.
So good.
So good.
It's really just about the food. Disney Sea, popcorn and other snacks, and also people watching.
The food in the Mediterranean harbor, there's this Italian restaurant, quick service. So good.
Pasta chips.
Or pasta crisps, whatever they're called.
They
were really, really
great.
great.
Just seasoned, baked spaghetti. And they were so good. And, so, Disney Sea, we just finished talking about it for probably too long, but...
Here's one thing about Disney Sea. Disney Sea is one of the best parks ever created. However, when it comes to the battle between Disney Sea and Shanghai Disneyland, there's one thing you have to know. Disney Sea lacks for a good roller coaster, and Disney Sea lacks a good wet ride.
Yeah.
As for Shanghai Disney has both.
Disney Sea, they've got Aquatopia, which qualifies as the water ride in the summertime, but it's not
actually
it's not. Yeah, wet ride, and then of course Raging Spirits, checks the box for coasters, but it's no Tron.
It's no Tron. It's for a park that's significant, that amazing, and that large. It does truly like a large roller
Disney
coaster.
Sea is basically
get me an Everest clone.
The dark ride capital of the world, with the exception of I guess it's arguable, but with Tower of Terror, Sinbad, Indiana Jones, 20,000 Leagues, Journey, Toy Story Mania. This park is excessive almost in its dark ride. Soarin' now, this ride is just dark ride central. But if you're there for more than just dark rides, you might feel like
it's not that great.
There's some areas of the park that need improvement. The Tokyo Disney Resort as a whole is not very coaster centric. They've got 5 coasters total. 2 of them are kiddie coasters, and the other 3 are clones.
Yeah,
and none of them are really big rides. They don't have anything.
Their biggest coaster is Big Thunder Mountain.
Yeah, they don't have anything on the scope of Expedition Everest or even Rock and Roller Coaster. Yeah. At this park, it is just it's dark rides.
That's what I think it lacks.
Yeah. So,
but still, it's amazing. You can just wander around an entire day not ride anything, and it'd be worth the money because it's so
people
pretty
watching,
and so beautiful,
basking in the majesty. Oh yeah, bottled green tea. That's another thing.
Mochi. Green tea?
Mm-hmm.
Or
green tea mochi.
Green tea mochi. Anyways, that's Disney Sea. If you have one day and they don't sell park hopper tickets, just so you know, you should pick Disney Sea.
Go to Disney Sea. Do yourself a favor.
Yep, Disney Sea it is.
Tokyo Disneyland is literally like the Oriental Land Company people went through with clipboards and went to Disneyland and Magic Kingdom and plucked their favorite things from those 2 parks and made one Super Disneyland. And they've added, a handful of custom attractions since then.
And curry.
Disney Sea is just it's a rare example. It's a lot like Islands of Adventure, actually, where as soon as Universal Studios Florida opened Islands of Adventure, that was the flagship park of the resort. It just immediately took the reins of being the reason why people go to this place. Yeah.
And then before we get to another major Japanese park, which is Nagashima Spotland, we're actually going to jump to 2 parks in the Tokyo region real quick while we're still on topic of Tokyo.
We want to make sure we talk about every park that we went to on the Ace trip.
Yeah, so we'll make it quick. We went to Toshimaen, which is located in Tokyo as well. Mm-hmm. Has a classic aero double corkscrew with trains that are like on Canyon Blaster. It was actually really smooth and a great ride.
If you're a fan of Dragonfire,
yeah.
Canyon Blaster in Vegas, like a rare example of these funky 90s aero trains. Toshimaen is definitely a product of the Japanese theme park slump. This park, they used to have a Schwarzkopf shuttle loop. They closed it in 2005, and just on our trip, which is less than a year ago now, they started demolishing the station for the shuttle loop. The ride had been gone for 13 years, and they finally started taking down the remnants of the ride. The park doesn't seem to have built anything new in a while, but I mean, what's there? I mean, everything was open, and their signature ride, which is the Cyclone, a Togo jet coaster from the '60s that hauls ass and was so amazing. We read it. I think, did we ride it twice, or did we just talk about riding it twice?
We rode it twice.
It was, what a cool ride. It's a terrain ride. It's got tunnels and stuff. This park was originally more famous for being a water park. I think it has like the original lazy river or something. It has some claim to fame that's water park related.
It may have been the original wave pool.
Like in the 60s, they were building water park conventions that are now considered very normal, but 50 years ago they were not. So this was a park that was pioneering. Something else that they're known for is like they have a lot of flat rides. They have a fabulous collection of flat rides, most of which are Huss flat rides, and almost all of them are on rooftops. The park has lots of like little shops and restaurants and stuff, and for every building in the park, there seems to be a ride on top of it. They have a troika that's on the roofs. They have a pair of giant Intamin swinging ships. Nagashima Spotland actually has these giant flying pirate rides. The capacity for these things is incredible. It's like 4 times the size of like a normal pirate ship ride. Definitely represents an era of Toshimaen's existence where they had a lot of attendance, and I don't know if they're pulling in a lot of people these days.
Park seemed like it was kind of struggling with modern day competition. Didn't seem as busy as it used to be, but you can kind of see, the park was once a thriving amusement park.
They had a Huss Condor.
Rides,
the Huss
and
Condor
a mini
was
Condor.
Amazing. And a baby Condor, the only one we've ever seen, where instead of like the 4 wheels of little bird vehicles, it's just a single wheel on one small tower. Super cute.
Yeah, and a couple. They had a powered coaster, a fun log flume,
and a kitty log flume too. They had a Blauer Ensign that's on a rooftop,
and they had a Toys R Us in the parking lot.
Oh yeah, they had a Toys R Us in the parking lot.
So yeah, that's a fun park if you're in the area. I would definitely say do it. There's
Japanese.
A couple
We
of
did this
credits,
one on the
good
same.
flat rides.
We did this one on the same day as Yomiuri Land. Yomiuri Land kind of stole the show. It's got a little bit more going on, but Toshimaen is a classic Japanese experience, and I'm hoping. I think they're doing okay, and I think they're probably getting ready to do something major. The fact that they were finally demolishing the station for the shuttle loop is a good sign of progression for them. So we'll see.
And then we also went to Sea Paradise in the Tokyo area. The animals don't look very happy. However, they have this crazy Togo coaster. It's called the
Surf Coaster Leviathan. Really great ride.
And it's over the water, which is really cool. It was just a really fun ride. I thought it was really great. It has good air. It's kind of like a mini hypercoaster with a bunch of helices. Yeah. And over the water.
It feels like a miniature Fujiyama, which is,
a praise.
The highest possible compliment one could pay is to compare a ride to Fujiyama, at least according to us.
Yeah, so that was good.
This is the park that has the 350-foot Intamin giant drop blue fall with like the fake out drops, like little magnetic brake fins.
It was definitely running when we got to the park. Or when we got to the actual ride, it closed down for a day.
It sucked because it was like we get there
with like 400 people,
and then like the only thing that was actually open for us by the time we were able to ride anything was the coaster. So the animal stuff. The animals, like you said, that didn't seem particularly happy. We were there for like an hour, and it was like, all right, whatever. The coaster was good.
Yeah, the animal exhibits were typically Japanese, very small. Animals seem distressed, but that's just Japan for you, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then the last park on our podcast on our Kawaii Coaster Kings is Nagashima.
Nagashima Spa-Land. We loved this park so much.
Amazing. I cannot believe this park. It is small, again. It is not as small as Fuji-Q, but it's small.
It's very concise.
However, they fit a mall, a water park, a resort, a spa, and a theme park in one spot, which is why Steel Dragon actually fits there, because you just circumnavigates that entire thing I just talked about.
That's a good place to start. Steel Dragon 2000.
Steel Dragon. So, like, everyone wants to know, well, here you are. It's a fantastic coaster. It's great. It's amazing.
We're not led to believe that we would be able to ride Steel Dragon because we well exceed the height cap.
Particularly me.
The ride height cap is what, like 180 centimeters, 185. Basically, it's
6'1" or something.
Like 6'2" is the cap,
and I'm 6'5".
So we didn't think we'd get to ride it, but we had no problems. We got on. This ride is a gift. I'm sorry, Millennium Force people, but
our main trick was getting exit passes, purchase them, and then going through the exit and never ever going.
Yeah, we never went through the
control.
main queue. Yeah.
The only thing is, like, you had to have a certain amount of clicks to ride, which some large Americans could not do. However, we were fine in that regard.
This is a Morgan Manufacturing hypercoaster, and it has B&M trains.
No, Giga Coaster. It is over 300 feet tall. It is crazy.
And it has B&M trains, which were added a couple years ago. The ride runs like a dream. The trains are beautiful. This ride is
such a long
This ride is so much better than Millennium Force. It's not
longest steel coaster in the world.
Yep, over 8,500 feet long.
I mean, everything it does. So first of all, the superstructure is fantastic to look at because it is the most overtly well-designed coaster because of the earthquakes. So, like, every single support is like 3 supports in one. Like, if you look at it, it's just literally like big tripods everywhere.
This ride was
holding up track.
Almost as much money as like Everest. Like, it was.
It was $50 million,
incredibly expensive.
But yeah, it was really, really expensive for the times, particularly.
Yeah.
Very long, very smooth, a lot of airtime.
Incredible airtime.
The trains are really long because of the modification made. So they had Morgan trains, they built B&M trains, and B&M trains are usually the V seating or 4 in a row. However,
it's actually just 2 across.
It's 2 across right behind each other. So the train much longer.
The ride just runs like a dream.
It's a little bit of a hammering, a little bit of a vibration on the bottom of the first drop because it's just
you're going
through so fast. But yeah, Millennium Force Leviathan take a seat because this ride is just a million times
Everyone's
better.
like, oh, well, Millennium Force, set the standard. No, it didn't. Steel Dragon 2000 opened like 3 weeks later and just beats the piss out of Millennium Force. It's just not even close. It's not even a fair fight. People are like, well, you're judging Millennium Force based on like Fury and I-305 and like, they just weren't, they were just doing the best with what they could at the time. I'm like, nope. No.
I'm sure they did their best. They tried their best, however.
Steel Dragon 2000.
Steel Dragon is just better than even Leviathan is.
It's,
or even better than I-305.
I like Steel Dragon better than Fury.
I mean, I like I-305 a lot, but it's over in a flash.
Steel Dragon is my favorite Giga Coaster, and it for a lot of concrete reasons, like tons of airtime, great pacing, it's super long, but also some unusual. We like rides with character. I never thought that a Giga Coaster would be a ride that would possess much character, but this ride has a very Japanese-ness quality about it. After the big figure 8 at the end of the ride, it kind of has this funky, return to the mid-course, like this weird little zigzag bit, and it just felt so odd. Like a nice little homage to the Japanese jet coasters before it.
And then there's about 16 airtime hills before you get back to the
return. Yeah. Also, the mid course is not. It doesn't slow you at all. This isn't like Steel Force or the other. The Morgan hypers at the Cedar Fair parks that their potential is squandered by the harshness of the mid course thing. This thing just sails through the mid course, and the airtime is just banging like an improved Magnum XL200 return to the station. You get that amazing air somewhere between ejector and floater. The restraints, because they're B&Ms, it's so much more comfortable for the average rider than like Magnum would be, and it's just prolonged. I mean, this ride leaves you breathless. It's a knockout, and it actually there's other rides in this park that are equally as good, too, which is really amazing.
Ultra Twister.
Ultra Twister was the one that we rode the most.
Because it was the most Japanese. Did we ride the most? Or we rode Dragon?
We rode Ultra Twister 4 times.
And
we rode
Dragon
3 times.
Okay, there you go.
Ultra Twister was the favorite of the day, even though Dragon left a more lasting impression.
That's because, I mean, you go to Japan, and all you want to ride is an Ultra Twister. Because it's the most Japanese, weird fucking...
And we're so happy that it was as good as it was. We rode in the front at least once, the middle, and the back twice. The drop is great. There's airtime on the camelback. The barrel rolls are cool.
The brakes, however, like on the transfer track, like in mid-ride, where it like shifts you backwards, shit was painful.
Yeah, punches you in the nuts, basically. But the ride itself is so amazing and weird and sasatisfying, and you can't even believe.
And it's very like production modeling, but the entire park's production modeling, because then there's the production model Looping Star, which ran great, has a bunch of trees around it, which is kind of cool. And then they have the production model Aero Double Cork, which is really good too.
Their production model Schwarzkopf Shuttle Loop, which however was closed on our visit, but it's open now. The fact that this park has a Schwarzkopf Shuttle Loop and a Looping Star and a Double Cork
and Ultra Twister
and an Intamin Freefall. I mean, like this park, it's just production rides everywhere, old and new, and then a couple of really standout custom rides, particularly Steel Dragon. Haikuge was
under construction over there,
well underway and amid its transformation. Some of our friends who have been to the park since its opening sing the praises of the ride. A friend of mine said that he liked it as much as Steel Vengeance because it's different, not necessarily better than Steel Vengeance, but not worse. A great credit to this already amazing, commanding lineup. And then as far as, aside from the other major coasters and Ultra Twister, the next best major standout ride there for us was actually their 4D free spin, Arashi.
Oh my god, Arashi. All right, so...
Have you ever felt like you might lose an eyeball on a coaster?
So you know how like the layout is really, really simple? It's like you go up a vertical lift, there's 3 bunny hills, there's a Raven turn, there's 2 bunny hills, a Raven turn, brake run. Alright, I don't know what the hell I was on that ride. The entire time I was so confused if we were like close to the end yet, if we had just begun, because that thing spun at least 10 flips or 10 flips or inversions on our small ride cycle. I cannot believe the intensity, the potential of this crazy ride.
I think because this ride is relatively close to Ijanika, the bar for a ride like this, the 4D ride concept, is set very high when you have the best case scenario 4D coaster, a few hours away.
That's amazing.
So Arashi is the abridged 4D coaster, but what a knockout for as far as the space and stuff. We all know what a nice use of space these 4D free spins are. They're a credit to the lineups of the parks in which they can be found, all these Six Flags parks and things. But Arashi is really running in a way that best represents what the ride is capable of. It probably operates in a way that makes SNS very proud, because this ride just runs on beast mode. You could pop a blood vessel in your face.
Yeah, I mean, it was so intense that I was screaming for my dear life.
Yeah,
and it was scary.
We rode it twice.
It was legit scary, but it left such a mark that I wanted to ride again.
We rode it twice, and it was even scarier the second time.
Yeah, so I'd definitely say if I had to pick a top 3 in the park, it would be Steel Dragon, Arashi, and Ultra Twister.
Absolutely.
And I would never thought a production model SNS free spin could do that.
And then you'll come back to America and you ride like one of the Joker clones at Six Flags,
and you do like 1.5 inversion. You're like, this is cute.
You're like, oh my god! And once you know what these things are capable of, because if you ride on Arashi, you're like, this is stupid. Like,
but yeah, I would say go and look up the video from TPR. There's a TPR video of Arashi, which has like a bunch of mounted cameras everywhere on the train, and you can see how crazy that thing flips.
Oh my god! I just remembered they have Acrobat too.
Oh, that's right. They have
a Manta clone. That's right. The B&M Flyer at SeaWorld Orlando.
So, as you can notably understand,
a few thousand feet from where we're currently sitting.
Yeah, it's less than a mile from where we're currently sitting.
Acrobat, which it's beautiful. It looks great. The Japanese people are really into flying coasters. apparently, because Nagashima Spa-Land and Universal Studios Japan have chosen B&M flying coasters to be major flagship components of their park. I guess for us, it's this incredible ride as it is. It's easy for us to forget when we're gushing over Togos and Steel Dragon and Arashi and multiple Schwarzkopf coasters and a classic Aero Corkscrew. I mean, funny enough, I guess that's just kind of the enthusiasts we are, but like the B&M coaster kind of gets lost here. But just a great ride in its own right. It feels a little odd without like the aquariums and the foliage of SeaWorld. Like, I think we like SeaWorld's better.
Oh, by far. The ride is really like tailored to SeaWorld Orlando's layout, and like every element kind of has its place, and then the little finale section with the water and stuff. Like, everything is very much incorporated with the park's layout and the aquarium. And if you put it on a flat piece of land, I was like, why would you recreate this exact layout? Because the layout of Manta is not perfect by any means. However, it makes sense for SeaWorld Orlando and its integration. Now, I don't know why you would just put that on the open land.
Bad.
It's not bad, but like,
I guess else. Yeah. If you're gonna, I'm just
save on designing costs.
I guess it's better than like a Superman clone. Like, if you're gonna, I'm glad that they went with this and not, and like they have it, the way the ride is positioned is very scenic because it's on it's between the parking lot and Steel Dragon, so the ride is definitely an all eyes upon it kind of thing. It's a good looking ride. It's got a nice paint job. The landscaping doesn't feel as lush as SeaWorld, but it's nice. We've got palm trees and stuff. You can tell that the Spa-Land people went to SeaWorld and rode Manta, and they were like, we need this for our park to the best possible ability, but obviously no live animals or anything as part of the atmosphere. But it has, the wing dip, which faces the midway side. It's a good-looking ride from all angles, so it's a good choice in that respect. And it's a different, Spa-Land just has a great variety of kinds of things. They've got a bunch of sit-down looping coasters from the 70s, but they also have a great variety of modern coasters, and an Intamin Freefall, and they have a vintage, they've got, of course, the obligatory vintage Togo jet coaster. They had a kitty-powered coaster themed to Peter Rabbit. They have a small log flume that's relatively new. They don't have like a major log flume, but they have like this very mild little log flume that's somewhere between like a full-size flume and like a kiddie flume. Like, it's on the same scale as like old aero flumes from the 60s with like one drop. But it was super cute. And then they have a giant shoot-the-chute a la Cedar Point or Doherty Park or Hershey Park. And just a ton of flat rides.
And the Bob Carts.
Oh, yeah, the Bob Cart. That was another... there's not very many of these.
Wild Mice.
Weigand electric Bob Cart. Oh, yeah, and they have two Wild Mouse Mac Mice that are parallel to each other, facing each other.
Yeah.
Mirror images of each other.
Yeah, the park has a lot to offer.
Park's got a lot going on. We're excited to go back.
We wanted, because the water park is really cool too, and they have the whole spa thing going on. So we want to do like a spa stay where we do like 2 days at the hotel. The spa is open until like 11 p.m. So do like the theme park during the day, do some spa stuff.
Of all of the parks that we went to in Japan, this is the one that made us the most want to come back.
We were talking about like planning a trip just for that, like just flying to Nagoya, because we like Nagoya as a city a lot too.
Nagoya is a cool city.
It's like a smaller Tokyo, a little more low key. Like, Tokyo is busy and it's very much like competing to be flashy. But then Nagoya was a little more low key. Just kind of walk around the streets, and it was all nice. And it wasn't busy.
We were supposed to go to we talked about this in the first podcast, actually, the first Japan podcast. We were supposed to go to the Park España Shima Spain Village amusement park,
near Nagoya,
which is near Nagoya. But there was a typhoon happening, so we didn't go there. We went to the Port Nagoya Aquarium instead, in the morning before the typhoon rains came. And that aquarium visit, which they've got beautiful orcas, it's sort of like a SeaWorld thing, but more of a... Sorry. Sean is doing sign language. What are you doing? Hey, what are you doing?
I had to stop it so I can use the restroom.
Oh, well, we're almost done.
Okay, hurry up then.
Okay,
So
sorry. Okay. Okay. Sven, I hope you can fix this.
Cut out the last 20, 30 seconds. Then.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Do you want to talk about Port Nagoya for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So Port Nagoya. Port Nagoya is an aquarium that's actually at the port. It wasn't too far from our hotel. But they house killer whales, dolphins. They have an underwater stadium, and they have an above water stadium. So you can either watch the dolphin show from above the water, or you can go into the aquarium section where you can actually see the entire dolphin tank underwater, which is kind of cool. They have belugas, and then that is all part of the new, the north section of the aquarium. Now the south section of the aquarium is the original aquarium, which has more the traditional tanks like turtles, sharks. Big fish tanks, tropical tanks. It was really, really cool, the way it was connected. We spent a good, how many hours there? 3-4 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. They have a little orca demonstration.
The gift shop was lit.
The gift shop was lit. It was cool, yeah. So if you're ever in Nagoya and you don't want to just do theme parks, I'm usually not an advocate for zoos and aquariums in Japan because I'm not the biggest fan of their animal treatment.
Definitely by the standards
we enjoyed
of Japan.
that. By Japanese standard, it was a nice facility.
You're not going to find better cared for captive animals in the country than at this place, I don't think.
Yeah, it was nice. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a nice facility.
It was a great little extracurricular.
And, it's close to the city center, which is nice. But yeah, if you ever have to pick a place that is not Tokyo, I honestly advise Nagoya. They got Nagashima nearby, some other major theme parks.
Osaka's cool too, but it's also very big and busy and
Osaka felt a little more like Tokyo. It was just busy.
Nagoya really feels more low key and probably more of a locals kind of city than the other two bigger metros in Japan. Definitely a place we look forward to going back, doing a little spa land and Legoland Nagoya, which we hear is really nice.
Yeah, they have a lot of things in the area. I keep forgetting how much there is to do.
And I would go back to the aquarium and then Shima Spain Village.
The airport, you can find out of. There's even flights from the U.S. that go straight to Nagoya. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would definitely say Nagoya.
Delta Airlines, Detroit to Nagoya.
No one's ever on that flight, so probably cheaper than Tokyo.
You might see us there.
You might see us on the flight because we have a spa trip to make.
Next time.
That kind of wraps up our Kawaii Coaster Kings 2-episode story about all of Japan's crazy theme parks. There's still a couple I haven't been to. We're still what's that goes with the big boom? The drop?
Nasu Highland.
Nasu Highland, and then we're missing
Mitsui Greenland.
Which and Ryutsu Resort.
Ryutsu Resort. Yeah. There's definitely some big parks that we're missing. But they're out of the way. They're either in super South Japan or super North Japan, and not the easiest to get to. But we've got our work cut out for us. There's definitely reasons to return to old parks that we visited and also some new parks.
Yeah. And so with that, we're going to go to China later this year. So,
by the way.
We'll do a couple episodes on China, mainland China, and on Hong Kong as well.
We'll do an expose episode kind of like this, or a parody.
Which would be kind of cool because the Chinese parks are a whole different beast than the Japanese parks.
We could probably do a whole episode on Shanghai Disney. That's our favorite place in the world.
And maybe we'll do another episode on ranking all Disney parks.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've been to all.
We need to talk about Hong Kong, too.
Yep.
The Hong Kong parks are great.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, Hong Kong and mainland China.
We have so much to
do. So we'll talk about that in future episodes. We'll do a couple more regular episodes in between. I appreciate everyone's understanding and patience in busy lifetimes.
It's a super long episode, too. Thank you all for listening.
So we will see you again. Don't forget to follow us on the web. Lots of new content on thecoasterkings.com. And we will see you guys again soon. Bye.
Bye.